Hi there, welcome back. Welcome to another video in the series of the restoration of the Grundig 2147. We are nearly there, nearly there. All we need to do is to complete the alignment of the FM front end, the RF alignment for the FM. In the last video I did the AM one. And this one is actually quite a lot simpler, but this one brings in another aspect of the procedure, which I'd just like to touch on briefly. I did a video recently of this device. It's a stereo, FM stereo signal generator. It produces a stereo signal as if it were an FM transmitter. You can get it in stereo, in mono, you can mute, you can add modulation to it. I'll put a link above to that video, so if you want to look at that. And the one thing about this is that it works pretty well, both by controlling it via the rotary encoder, as well as controlling it via the PC software that they supply with it. So one thing that I noticed in the video I did on this, and I didn't really demonstrate it, but one thing I noticed is that the RF levels are quite high. So obviously this thing needs some sort of attenuation. And I've already ordered a couple of attenuators for here. This thing produces from 88 dB microvolts to 118 dB microvolts. Now that's a 75 ohm output. So it comes out at probably about 60 dBs higher than I need. So I need a lot of attenuation. But we'll see when I get those attenuators and I put it on here. Now the other thing I did was, this thing produces 75 ohms. The back of the radio requires about 300 ohms, 240, 300 ohms. So I built this little converter, this pad, and all this is a converter from 75 ohms to 300 ohms. And this thing is the exact schematic that they produce, or they provide, in the Sencor SG165 manual. It's a passive converter, so there's loss, not gain. And what it does is it lets this device see 75 ohms, and it lets the radio see a 300 ohm source. Now, it's not really important here. You know, with impedance conversion, you want to achieve two things. One is you want to make sure that the value you see produced by your source is actually the value that is going into the device, or that you know what drop you get. So if I send a certain voltage, microvolts, millivolts, whatever, from here, I need to know that it's the same, or that it's that I can work out what is going into the radio. In this situation, I don't measure sensitivity levels. I don't need to. So that aspect of it is not a problem. But this thing gives us about 6 dBs of loss, 5.5 I think it is, 6 dBs of loss. It's not important. Honestly, I don't want that kind of precision on a radio like this. I just want to make sure that the signal going in is not too strong. And what I've done, and this is breaking all the rules, is I've sent the signal from here to my switched attenuator over there, which I've also done a video on. And I found which level I need to give me a decent signal. When I say a decent signal, it's a signal that is not going to overload the front end of this radio or the IF sections. So basically what I did is I put this on minimum, I switched it on, and it's got a 1 kilohertz tone on it. And then I saw what the strength was on the magic eye, and I started clicking attenuation on there, and it comes out to the total amount. So that is 20 plus 12, 32. What is that? 32, 38. So 41 dBs. 41 dBs. And it breaks all the rules of impedance matching, because this is 75. The cable's 75. Once it goes into there, it's 50 ohms. 50 ohms comes out, goes into a 75, comes out at 300. So this is a total mess as far as impedance matching is concerned. But you know what? It works. It works. So I'm not going to be too fussy about that for now. When I receive all the adapters and everything else, I'll be going and looking at this a little bit more carefully, because obviously if I'm going to set up a receiver like the Pioneer SX1050 that I did, I will want to be able to reference the actual values. But anyway, let's have a look at what we're doing with the RF alignment of the FM section. This is a breaking of a promise. I said we wouldn't see schematics again, but this is really the last one. And I'll explain what we're doing here, and then I'll show you, and we'll see what result we get. Now for the FM, we have a very similar situation to what we did with the AM front end. It's actually a lot simpler, and you'll see why. Let me zoom in a bit. The instructions tell us that there are 3 different adjustments we need to make. On A, which is over here, on B, which is over here, and on C, which is here. Now, as we can see, the usual situation where we can adjust the top end and the bottom end of an oscillator doesn't apply in this case. If we look at this section, which is the oscillator, it's got one adjustment. That tells us something. What it tells us is that this thing is set to tune across a span of frequencies. And what it should tune across is 87.5 to 100 megahertz. Now, we've done this in the past with some other radios where you can set the 87.5 with one setting, the coil, for example, and then you can go to the other end and you can adjust the top end. In other words, you can adjust the top end of the frequency range so that you can actually compress it or extend it. And I've often done that to get the 101.6 megahertz that I want over here, because I've got a station I listen to on that frequency. Now, this one doesn't do that. This one just allows you to make one adjustment, which is A for the oscillator. Now that means that you're taking a span, which in this case 87.5 to 100 would be 12.5 megahertz, and you're sort of shifting it up and down. It's not strictly correct, it's not absolute, that, as you'll see, but it's nearly there. So what we do is we set this thing to, what do they tell us, 89. They tell us to set this to 91.5. In other words, put the dial or tune to 91.5 on the dial, and then maximize A so you can get the frequency exactly on 91.5. And that means that this thing is set up so that it'll tune down all the way to 87.5 and tune up all the way to 100. It's a shame. I would like to be able to stretch it, but this one doesn't allow us to do that. But this is the most obvious tuning that you do, alignment that you do. You set that one there for the oscillator. Then you go to the antenna circuits. And on the antenna circuits, we do have a sort of top and bottom, but it's not too precise. This B you set with 88 megahertz on the dial, and you adjust B, and that's maximizing the antenna circuit, this resonance circuit, at the lower frequency range at 88. And then you adjust C on 99.5, which is C being, where is it? This tuning, this trimmer cap. You adjust that on 99.5 to give you a peak. These are not that obvious because what actually gives you the tuning that you do is more the oscillator than the front end. So we won't expect too much effect of these two. You should expect a bit. This is sort of giving you a broader band, and this is giving you the precise tuning. So we'll set that up and see how we go. One more thing before I forget. They do tell you to adjust D. Now, if you recall, this is an RF amplifier. The signal comes in here from the antenna, and it is really produced across that coil there, that primary. It goes to the secondary, and the secondary becomes your input to the RF amplifier. So what they tell you there literally is that coil D or circuit D is very wide band. So they don't actually tell you to measure it. They tell you to set it at 2 millimeters below the edge of the of that spool, of that former, which means it's not really a tuning. It's just to make sure that you're getting a pretty good pass through from the primary to the secondary. So I won't touch that. Those things are usually pretty set. It's, as it says, it's set to a distance from the top. And when they say 2 millimeters, it's really approximate. You can't sit there and measure it. So there's no point in adjusting something you can't measure the results for. So I'll set this up and we'll see how we get along. Now, before I start, let me recap what I'm going to be doing here. I'm going to set this thing at 91.5. It's over there. And I will be adjusting the oscillator, which is that guy over there. Okay? Then I'll be tuning it to 88 over here. And I will adjust B, which is that guy over there. Then I need to tune to 99.5, which is over here. Now, during all that, I'll be looking for the strongest signal, the peak, and for that I'll be again using the analog multimeter on DC volts. And I will once again be measuring the voltage across that ratio detector capacitor, which gives me a negative voltage whose amplitude is proportional to the strength of the signal. So that's just a quick explanation of what it is I'll be doing. You'll see me doing it, but I just wanted to explain basically what it is that I'm doing here. And of course, all along, I've got the antenna signal there on FM going through this converter here and coming from the ELV stereo signal generator, which is going to be generating a mono signal. Right, first thing we do, let's switch on the RF. But first of all, I've got this on minimum 88 dB microvolts. That's the minimum. Remember, as I said, it's going to the switch attenuator. There's maximum attenuation on there. All the impedance matching is out the door. It's going from 75 to 50 to 75 to 300. But never mind, we'll see if we hear something. I've got the frequency set to 91.5 megahertz. I have a mono signal, so no stereo. Limit is on, but that's not necessary. There's no mute on. I've got the 1 kilohertz signal tone being generated so we can hear it. And I think we're ready. Let's hit RF on. And I will put the volume up. All I hear is hissing now. And I can hear. I can hear it. Hear that? That's the 1 kilohertz wave that we're seeing there. Now remember, this thing is not quite there. I've set it to 91.5 megahertz exactly. So now I need to adjust this guy here, which is the oscillator. See if we can bring it in. Oh yeah, we can. Oh, it's going a bit faster than I thought. I'll have to change the setting here to the 10 volt range. There's our peak. So that is perfectly tuned. Get rid of that noise. That is now perfectly tuned to 91.5 megahertz. Brilliant. I would like to bring that voltage down a bit more, but I don't have another attenuator, so I can't do that. So next thing is we need to set this thing to 88. Okay. I'm going to tune down to 88. Put the volume up so I can hear. Oh, I can hear it. It's exactly on 88. And now I need to get the maximum strength out of this guy here, which is B. Can I see any change? Ever so slightly, hardly worth mentioning. Now I need to go to 99.5 megahertz, and I'm going to tune to 99.5. It's pretty much spot on. It's pretty much spot on, but I'll just see if I can get any more out of this guy here, which is C. Get a bit of light. Need a bit of light to see it properly. Now, I think it's going away. There's obviously a... I think that's about it. There's obviously a touchy contact there, but I think we've got it. Now, there's one thing I need to do. Because I want to see whether I can pick up 101.6, I think it is, 101.6, which is my favorite station up here. And if I can't, I can always adjust the oscillator. I'm going to set this thing a bit higher. So it's at 99.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9. There's 100. I'm going to try and tune it. Yep, I'm getting it. I'll go a bit further. There's 100.5. Yes. Now there's 101. And I'm still getting past it. There's 101.6. Let's see if I can get it. And I'm right at the end. Now I don't want to be right at the end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move it to the right a bit. Just a little bit. And I'm going to adjust the oscillator. This one. So what I've done is I've moved this down a bit. Now I can tune past it, on it, and below. Now what I need to do, because I've shifted this thing up a little bit, I want to make sure that I can get that station at 88. And I do have a station at 88. So I'm going to put 88 on here again. And see if I haven't sort of gone too far beyond. Yep, 88, it's there, and I've done it. Ha, brilliant. Okay, that, my friends, is about as much RF alignment of the FM front end as I'm going to do, and I'm pretty pleased that what I wanted to do, I've achieved. I checked the alignment first on the dial. I've sort of peaked it at the low end, sort of peaked it at the back end. Remember, as I said, these are not sharp filters there. They're actually fairly loose. I didn't really see that much difference at all. But the important thing is the signal's coming through quite well, and adjusting those doesn't show us any obvious rises or dips, which is what I want to make sure I don't have. So that's been aligned, and then what I did was I shifted the entire scale just slightly up, because it's supposed to start at 87.5, and I've got a station at 88. And I've got a station at 101.6, so I'm catching 101.6, in fact just a little bit beyond that, so that I can tune properly up there. And then coming back, I can check, and I have checked, that my 88 megahertz station is still there. Right, that's what we've done. And you know what? I think this radio is done. I think it's complete. We've only got the cabinet to do now. And this cabinet is amazingly in shape. So let's have a look at that and see how far we can get with this. We might even be able to finish it in this video. Two more things I need to mention before I show you the final result. One of them is the Bluetooth that I've added to this. Now I'm sure I believe you might have seen my Bluetooth modules before. This is a board that I designed, and The board is basically the power supply. It has an isolated power supply, which makes sure that we isolate the power supply of this completely, galvanically isolated from the supply on the radio, and that reduces high frequency noise generated by the Bluetooth section. But I'll put a link to that video above. But the module itself is just a module that I buy on eBay. This board was designed to accommodate this particular module. However, you can practically use any module you like. I'm actually running out of these modules. That's the problem. I designed the board for this module and I'm having difficulty finding more of these modules. So maybe a new board is in order soon. But what I've done here is I've connected the Bluetooth in here. The supply of the Bluetooth is a 6.3 volt supply, which I've taken from the lamp, the dial lamp. So 6.3 volts AC. The ground just goes to the chassis because I know that the lamp's supply, the 6.3 volt, which is the heater voltage, is referenced to the chassis as well. So I've got my 6.3 volts coming in here, and I've got a mono signal coming out here. This is a stereo receiving module. I'll make it mono, and I'm feeding it in to the back, or through the inside, to the tape input, or that DIN plug socket that we have there, which is the external phono input. So when I choose phono, or pickup, or whatever you want, tape, that's by connecting the medium wave and the long wave and short wave together. I'll show you when I demonstrate it. This is what I'm going to pick up. Now, the other thing I had a problem with was the speaker itself. If you remember the first video I showed you, the speaker has a red back cover. This one's a new speaker. It's come out of the new unit that I've ordered, and because I've got two more, I can afford to blow up one. Well, sacrifice one for now. That speaker was actually damaged. The core in the middle is rattling, so it was slightly distorted, and I decided to try it with this one, and now it's perfect again. So what I've done here is I've actually got this thing completed. I fitted the unit back in the radio, so from the back there's no mystery. We can now put the back cover on, and the back cover is in perfect condition. So again, nothing necessary here. Even the screws were in good shape. This thing was beautiful. But let me turn around and show you. Look at this thing. It's unbelievable. The woodwork just needed a bit of cleanup with some, basically with some furniture polish. Over there, as you can see, just to give it a bit of a gloss. But there was no painting done. There was a slight touch up at the bottom here, which I did fill in and then just sort of put some brown tint on here so you don't really see it. But otherwise, this thing is in perfect condition. The faceplate is hardly anything worth mentioning. The screws, I've actually put in new ones because the other ones were slightly tainted. These screws are the same, so everything is spotless. And it's come out amazingly well. Not that it was bad in the first place, but it's come out amazingly well. And I'm really happy to say that this thing is complete. So all that's left for me to do is do a demonstration and show you this thing in action. I'll start by demonstrating the Bluetooth function. If you haven't seen this before in my previous videos, basically because the Bluetooth unit is connected to the dial lamp, anytime this radio is on, the Bluetooth device activates. So I will activate the pickup input, which is long wave and short wave pushed together on this radio. I can see the dial lamps come on, so my Bluetooth has come on as well. Now, if I take my device, in this case it's the iPad, there it is. It appears right here. So I just pair it, and it's now connected, which means that if I find some royalty-free music, and I've got a few things here, give it a bit of volume, and push play, you can hear it already. I can control the volume either here or here. It's too loud. I've got full control of what I'm playing from my device. A little bit better. I get full control from my device or on here. What I generally do is I put this on the loudest I want, and I can then control the volume from my actual iPad or iPhone, whatever I'm streaming from. And the quality of sound is exceptionally good for something as simple as that. And so basically this becomes a Bluetooth speaker powered by a tube amp, which does give it that tubey sound, if that's what you're looking for. But for me, what amazes me most is the look of this thing and the fact that you can actually use this on a day-to-day basis with your iPhone or with your phone. Streaming music from your music collection or from Spotify or from whatever you want. And this thing certainly does a great job of that. It's not a huge speaker. This is not a big speaker, but the sound level and sound quality is certainly good enough, more than good enough, and certainly better than a lot of these modern ones that you can get. So I think now all we need to do is for me to demonstrate the reception itself. And it's a bit afternoon here now, so it's not a good time to receive any of these bands. So I'll wait till later. In the evenings, long wave, short wave, and medium wave are a lot better. And it also depends on the atmospheric conditions. But I use the mini whip antenna, which does a magic job of picking up stuff. So I'll demonstrate that later. And then I think we're ready to sign off on this project.
É um projeto que não faz sentido manter desde 2004. É uma competição que nem devia ter começado. A minha opinião mantém-se, cimenta-se à medida que os anos passam. A taça da Liga é embaraçosa para os clubes. O formato da competição é pouco democrático.
Onde todos os seus membros...
Se pudesse receber as notificações do Estado numa morada única digital. O Serviço Público de Notificações Eletrónicas é de adesão voluntária para cidadãos e empresas e conta com entidades pioneiras como a PSP e o Instituto dos Mercados Públicos, do Imobiliário e da Construção.
Taça da Liga, meias finais.
Sybil's job at the Institute has been blighted by the presence of Helen Hanson, the glamorous lecturer, and the poetry classes Sybil signed up for haven't done much to improve her life so far.
Pan odkłada. Nie, odkładam. Chciałbym bardzo zrobić wam tam swoich pomysłów też. Bardzo mnie to intryguje, że po prostu to jest bliższe.
J'y allais 3 fois, ça m'a bien plu et je voulais aller dans un endroit pas loin de la mer en fait. Parce que j'aime beaucoup, et j'aime beaucoup la Bretagne.
Donner une campagne rustique, acheter des médicaments prudents, des médicaments, etc. Et de l'autre côté, ina ganin dalilin da ya sa Najeriya ba ta samu shiga wannan gasa ba saboda
请您先拿号，再去那边等候。
Voilà, o nom é prénom.
And get out in the start. Ahora que he ido vaca ya es el momento que tengamos contrato. Creo que es oficialmente el día o el lunes más.
Bueno, actualízame tu vida, Eustoquio. ¿Qué tal las fiestas? ¿Qué has hecho? ¿Cómo está la...?
Contento de seguir allí jugando.
الشاب مش عنده طريقة يعبر بها فانه يكون عنيف يعبر بالعنف. الخط هو من
Sigma?
Este viene supongo que cambiará con el tiempo, pero bueno, hay que leer ahora. Un abrazo también para Adrián Alves, que nos contaba la información de las declaraciones. Un edificio, tocando el telefonillo, yo le di paso al repartir. 3 años más y ganamos en la audiencia.
بسرعة نقص السرعة تتوقف تشوف ضوء أخضر أحمر
ليرفعه إليه والله هو المعلم الأعظم.
De mensajería, la empresa esta tan famosa que te pueden comprar cosas online.
Desde, no sé, desde John Ram.
And that's it for now, folks. That's that radio done. And I think this one is a keeper. I keep saying that. I always say that at the end of these restorations. I fall in love with my own work. Anyway, I want to just first of all apologize for some delays. Christmas period came in. I decided to go all out on some of the detailed description. I hope that's helped some of you. And as I said before, some of that information is not just for you. It's just cemented in my mind as well. When I'm explaining, I'm learning at the same time. Now, the result of this is a radio that I would quite happily see in my lounge, and probably will do, because it's got that sort of classic modern look, vintage look. I got a feeling that if my daughter sees this, I'm going to lose it. She's already stolen one from me. She's turning 21 this year, and she's gone into the vintage mode, as a lot of these youngsters have, which is a good thing. I think it's a good thing. So once again, I want to thank you for coming along for the experience. I hope you've enjoyed that. I hope you've learned something. I certainly have. And if you have enjoyed that, please click like, share, subscribe, and all that jazz. And I will see you again soon for another restoration. I'm not sure what it's going to be. I've got a couple of options. I'm going to give it some thought. Thanks for watching. Bye for now and stay safe.